everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus with a quick deck tech before our latest Boros Burn. As a friendly reminder, if you like especially red-based content in the modern format, please consider subscribing to the channel, as the main focus of this channel is red-based aggro in the modern format. So, deck tech, fairly simplistic Boros Burn list, no Luris, no Incinerator, just kind of bare bones Boros Burn. This version kind of split on the 2 slot spells, Skull Crack, 3 Skull Cracks, 3 Searing Blazes, 3 Lightning Helixes, 3 Skewer the Critics. So sometimes you'll see all the Skull Cracks on the sideboard, or some people aren't playing any Searing Blazes. The core of Burn is these 16 spells, and then the 4 Eidolons, and then the 4 Boros Charms, and then the mix of Bolt, Skewer, Helix, Blaze, Skullcrack kind of all vary based on what's going on with the meta. And then 20 lands, 5 can lands. This is probably about the land configuration, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fetches, 2 fetchable duels, 3 basics. Kind of about where I like to be. I like the 1 Fiery Islet, don't really like 2. I feel like that pushes the damage count of your land a little bit too high, and then you have the 4 Sunbaked Canyon, obviously, and then obviously the 12 typical creature threats. As far as the sideboard, well, this isn't my sideboard. This was one of the latest 5.0s and the 5.0 deck dumps. The split on Smash and Wear Tear is kind of nice. Gives you some Alex Ley Line of Sanctity, while still giving you the 4 Shatter effects, the 4 Skull Crack on the sideboard, 1 Exquisite Firecraft. This is kind of probably where Luris would be in most builds. They're running Luris, but it's nice to have against decks with counter spells, be it Uro Piles or whatever else you're facing. 3 copies of Path to Exile. I think that feels about the right number anymore. 4 sometimes feels like too many. 2 feels like too few sometimes. 3 gives you that little bit of flexibility. 4 Core Firewalker. I mean, there's a lot of prowess in the meta. Not as much burn lately, but still nice to have a card that's kind of a must-kill in that situation. Then 2 copies of Rest in Peace. You still got to respect Dredge. While other people are opting for things like Surgical and Relic, still kind of hard hate for Dredge is always nice, especially with the Silver Smooth Golem Ghoul versions. They actually seem to take more damage from their lands than traditional Dredge did, but they do have access to, more Spining Helixes and stuff, so being able to shut off their graveyard as a resource is kind of a nice thing. So that said, let's jump into some matches. Here for match number 1, we're on the play. Nice place to be. Hand's tempting. So that, into that, into that, that. I guess we keep it, but this hand is awful risky. The 1-lander, especially in Boros, can just be so bad. Trigger into a swamp. Okay. So Jund or some equivalent thereof. Could be black-red Skelemental. Skewer the Critics, interesting. So now here a second. Okay, it's just John. Interesting. I think I just attack with Goblin Guide here. More interested in mana efficiency than anything else. Good chance the Goblin Guy is just dying. Terminate? Yep. Wow, rough keep. This looks like we both kept questionable hands. This is probably likely to die, but I'm okay with that, I think. What kind of hand do they keep? Keeping land in hand, that way we can trigger Searing Blaze should they actually draw a land here. Yep. They get to take our Searing Blaze, which is fine. But in the same old awkward spot. Alright, got there in game number 1 against Jund. Sideboarding is where things gets a little bit trickier. Probably want this. Probably want the paths. As to what to board out. Searing Blazes are the first choice usually. It's because oftentimes the creatures we're trying to kill are bigger than Blaze can handle. This was something like I reevaluated that in the Chandra's Incinerator builds, but in terms of traditional, I think we cut that. And then maybe cut a Skewer the Critics. Maybe it's supposed to be a Lightning Helix from mana efficiency standpoint. Like sometimes Skewer can be hard to actually turn on properly. This hand seems reasonable, not like spectacular, but we have 2 lands and a Swiftspear, and we are against a probably losing Swiftspear here. Question is, do I fetch a basic mountain here? I mean, Jund kind of races us, but they kind of don't. So it's kind of hard to decide if I'm supposed to just fetch a mountain there, considering... Okay. Awkward, but I think from an efficiency standpoint we hold up skull cracks and helixes here. Wouldn't be surprised if we get Liliana here. But even with Liliana, they're going to 14 and then 11. Clothis, yeah, Clothis is tricky. But with skull cracks, it's ultimately manageable. So, barring any additional nonsense, I think our opponent's just dead here. So what do I pitch here to Liliana? Guess we pitch Skewer. Now we need to rip pretty good here to... Alright. Nice rip. Look at this hand for match number 2. We're on the draw. Just think everything about this hand gets worse on the draw. One lander, if we miss on a second land, can't really cast much other than Goblin Guide. Eidolons are a lot worse on the draw, so I think overall this hand's just a mulligan. This hand's a lot not great, but get rid of the fetch land, I guess. Some people could say keep the fetch land to thin the deck, but alright, so take a blue pile. Probably gonna manly remand this. Sure. This is one of those hands that Goblin Guy would have been pretty decent. Alright, so basically I can't win here. It'll push. awkward. This matchup just feels abysmal anymore. Problem is they get a cryptic command either way. Take the 3 lands. Interesting. Okay. Force of negation makes trying to win even more difficult, but if they're smart here, they're not going to counter the Boros Charm. But no, let's. Guess we'll lead on Lightning Helix here. This probably gets the Force of Negation. Sure. Moving on. Skull Crack. That. Bring the rest in pieces, although I'm not particularly happy about it. Got these Searing Blazes. Shiva Lightning Helix. Don't need to board out Rift Bolts because we're not facing down Teferi Time Raveler. Uro is definitely a handful as a card. But we had a mediocre 6-card hand, and, well, hello there. Yeah, guess we keep this hand. Hope to rip some lands. Snapcaster range, sure. Land, please. Nice. Okay, Uro and Uro, sure. Alright, still, especially with the Snap now, seeing the Snapcaster Mage as well. I think the Rest in Peace increases in value. Problem is, we gotta beat Uro Pile on the draw, which isn't the easiest. Hand's pretty reasonable overall. Don't know that we can beat Uro Pile, but, you know, is what it is. Interesting that they lead on Field the Dead here. It's gotta be like their worst land. Trigger. They play a naked Snapcaster Mage here. Nothing. Okay. Awkward. I think we go ahead and just lead on this here. It's the balance, right? Playing around Uro and playing around their other stuff. Okay. Sure. Okay, going to 9. Hopefully they don't have another Force of Negation. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, we're back for match number 3. We're on play, which is nice. This hand's just a mulligan, right? We're on the play. We have 3 1-mana plays max. Gonna keep it. It's certainly a risky keep, especially with these three just being, you know, probably should have mulled this hand, but especially against Hardened Scales here. Hardened Scales traditionally a pretty rough matchup. Pre-board game's pretty close. We can certainly lose. Post-board games are a little bit closer. Or no, post-board games are actually unfavorable because they usually have 4 copies of Nature's Claim in them. So really want to find a second land this turn. Alright, so Blaze is the best at what we're trying to do here. They do get to put the counter on Ozlith, which means their Hangerback Walker or whatever they play next turn is going to have counters on it. We get to put them to eat. Ravager, sure. Third land. Which they ironically probably never want to tap. So Hangerback Walker. Yep. Turns our Goblin Guide into kind of useless here. Wow. So if we draw a land, they're just dead. So we basically have 2 turns to kill them here before we're dead ourselves. Especially if they happen to hit a Hardened Scales somewhere in here. Yeah, One Jar is not relevant. Ravager is not particularly relevant either. Skull crack your face. Tap and Boros Charm you. Post board, we have a lot to bring in, fortunately, but still not as good as what they get to bring in. These. Some people would consider bringing in Rest in Peace, but don't really think stopping Ravager is all that great. Eidolon is the first cut. A lot of their spells can be scaled to 4, and so we're basically dealing more damage to ourselves. I like Eidolon against Traditional Affinity, but obviously Traditional Affinity doesn't really exist anymore. And then the next cut's usually Boros Charm. You know, while the 4 damage can come up in some spots, you want basically all interaction on deck against this deck. So, you know, Wear Tear here is... It's nice to have access to Wear Tear, although it doesn't deal damage. It does enable us to interact with... I think this hand's fine. Wear Tear does enable us to interact with Hardened Scales itself. I'm looking into 5 here. Really want to hit a second land to unlock this hand before they can combo kill us. And we'll just hand them a Nosylith, which is scary enough. Yeah. And there's a green source. Okay, they already had a green source. Yeah, that's fine. Again, I really want to find a second land. Hardened Scales is kind of scary. Sure. What the heck is this? Pass here, holding up interaction. Okay, one card in hand. Sure. Really want to rip a land here. Still not lethal. Can't afford to play around Nature's Claim at this point. If you have it, cool. If you don't, then cool. Nice. Back for match number 4. We're on the play, which is nice. Four-lander. So 4-lander with 3/1 mana plays and 2 cantrips, I think I'm more inclined to keep. Like I said, not a fan of keeping 4-landers, but Collected Company, okay. Ten, pass turn. Okay. Let's crack it at end of turn, maybe. Collected Company. Definitely a unique group of cards. Okay. Maybe I'm supposed to block here, just to buy us some time. Another collected company. Sure. Love to draw a Boros Charm here. Just in this stupid game. Okay, apparently not. Yeah. Not yet. Sure. Alright, Heliod Combo. I kind of finally established what they're on. That. The paths. And the rest of this makes sense. No. Let's go down the Boros terms, I guess. Select way first. It's pretty reasonable overall. Found the Utopia Sprawl part of it interesting. Paths or anything? Resurgence, sure. Yep, let's look against social knockup. Still don't feel like we want a path to exile, not rest in peace or anything like that nonsense. thinking. Sounds pretty good. I'm putting back here. Lava Spike, I guess. Green, green. That's interesting. Sure. Second path isn't great here. Got a collected company. Cool. Keep going, Chief. Sure. uh... Sure. 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 Okay, quite the eclectic mix of nonsense. At this point, I can go ahead and scoop because of the Oriok champion. It's actually going to kill us before damage does. Or before we can deck them, so. Faster. Yep. This feels like a nightmare matchup. I guess we can go ahead and concede here. You're back for the fifth match. This hand is pretty reasonable. One drop threat into a bunch of burn spells, 3 lands. Tron of some kind. I'll just fetch a basic here. It's probably Eldrazi Tron would be my guess. Or, yeah, looks like Eldrazi Tron. Wow. So we're in some trouble here. on him again. So thought not seer. So we're gonna lose our only castable card. Deciding if they want to crack or draw a card or whatever here, or they're just taking forever for no reason. Some Path Exiles and some Smashes probably coming in here. Sure. Reality Smasher to boot. Save 2 life. Like, we had a pretty reasonable opening hand, but then just hitting 2 more lands, just kind of a death sentence against a deck that takes one of our spells and then, you know, provides quite a bit of a clock here. So while it's theoretically possible we could top deck well enough to kill them, Maze Mind Tome giving them 4 life next turn is just going to be too much to overcome without our next draw being exactly Skullcrack. And then we'd need to rip, what, Boros Charm? So we basically need Boros Charm and Skullcrack to be in the top 2 cards of our deck. Sorry, top 3 cards of our deck. Gains 4 life, puts them to 11. Sure. Chalice is going to be bad. Guess we top deck Bolt. This puts them to 5. So, at this point we need to fade both Ballista and do it in case it's a sorcery. So for this turn we need to fade Chalice, Ballista, and Smasher. Alright, so we want the smashes. The Skullcrack's fine. Want the paths. Want the wear tears. Put out the Eidolons. Searing Blaze isn't fantastic. And then board out the Eidolon because a lot of their things just ignore Eidolon pretty much. Blaze only really hits Matter Shaper and Ballista profitably. And need to cut one more card, so feels like a Boros Charm or a Helix. Like we're somewhat racing them, but also at the same time this hand's just terrible. So yeah, we have a lot of 1 mana plays and like 12-15 points of burn. We only have 1 land, and a Chalice on 1 effectively locks us out of the game. This hand's much better. Probably putting back the Rift Bolt question mark or the Skullcrack. Can crack the fetch without really thinking too much about it. We don't have any type of like Searing Blazes in our deck right now, so let's grab the basic. Like I said, they kind of race us in some situations, so buying yourself that extra draw step sometimes can be relevant. And Maze Mind Tome. So we're on the clock. Not ideal here. Definitely not ideal. Chalice is going to be a little rough next turn. Shuts off the path. Charm's not terrible here. Blast Zone's kind of whatever. Sure. Sure. A trade to get some of the pressure off the battlefield. Reality Smasher, delightful. Card on top. Yep. Sure. Eight mana, 4, 8. So if they go all in, we're dead next turn. The list of math, every 4 mana equals 2 damage, basically. Because they can pump it twice with available mana and just kill us. Excuse me. Excuse me. Wow. Yep, or they can just draw another Reality Smasher. Eldrazi Tron's always a rough matchup. Turn the game. Yeah, we would draw land anyway. Alright, be back with the wrap up in a second. So, like I said, in the Is It Prowess deck that we did very, very recently, the results are always like really razor thin. Like the first 3 matches, you know, we beat Jund, which typically a favorable matchup for us. Jund does have draws that can beat us, but Jund is a fairly reasonable matchup. It's a 3-color deck without counter spells that does quite a bit of damage to themselves. Our opponent had a hard keep in game 1 or game 2, I can't remember which, and their mana kind of skewered them a little bit, and we drew well in game number 2. Uro Pile, sometimes you gotta draw like a god to beat them, and we did, you know. Variance was on our side. Match number 3 was... I'm trying to remember what our 3rd match was, and I'm kind of drawing a blank right now. 4th match, Heliod Ballista Combo. That much life gain. Kind of rough. That said, if I keep a better hand in game 1, maybe we don't flood out and die, basically. Game 2, we were on the play in 1. Game number 3, you know, they do the infinite life thing. I played for a couple more turns to that decking plan because we're, you know, so close to a 4-0 at that point. But obviously, you know, they have Oriok Champion. Not going to beat that. They're going to kill us before we can deck them. In the 5th match against Eldrazi Tron, Eldrazi Tron's just a miserable matchup. Like, there's so many cards that beat us. Chalice on 1 kind of stuck us a little bit. You know, a fast Thought-Knot Seer into Reality Smasher beat us. And now on top of that, you know, not only do they have the Karn package, but they also have Maze Mind Tome, which puts us on another clock as far as their life going up 4 points. So, you know, it's really kind of hard to beat all that when it seems like their deck is kind of tailor-made to beat what we have going on. But, you know, 3-2, and even like Heliod we could potentially have won if I was more disciplined with my mulligan in game 1. And then, you know, Eldrazi Tron, we were 1 draw step away from killing them in game 1. And then game 2, we just got locked out by Chalice. I mean, we had 4 outs in our deck, didn't draw them, and, you know, they had a fairly reasonable clock. Natural Tron into Reality Smasher plus Ballista and all that, so, you know. Like I said, you know, Magic is a game with variance, and, you know, at least anymore, in a lot of these leagues, there really isn't a difference between a 1-4, a 3-2, and a 5-0. Like, legit, it's like 1 draw step, or 1 mistake, or 1 play made, or not made, that can lead to, you know, results. It's all about trying to play as well as you can, play to your outs, especially with a deck you know. So, hopefully y'all got something out of this league. As always, this has been John for MTG Nexus.